Turbo hybrid Formula Car. Let's for the creation of the most efficient engine in the world. Don't let the relatively 1.6 litre engine displacement. Hybrid produces the fastest ever car that
Hello, Sonny Bonanni. Welcome to the first of 3 qualifying sessions. It's a top-tier Breakaway League racing. We are in Saudi Arabia today. We will have 18 minutes to get this first qualifying session underway, or rather to complete it entirely. As you can see, we have a diminished field, as Oli is in the comment section. It's good to see you. Lee is also around. Don Rabico is, frolicking in the comment section as opposed to being out on track here today. Don Rabico finished, crossed the line before any other driver in the previous 2 races, but it seems that, at least at the start of this here session, he will not be involved at the beginning. So perhaps we might see Don Rabico. We hope to see Don Rabico when the clock strikes 8 p.m. And thereafter. But if not, then, well, his presence will surely be missed. As Buddha has just joined the lobby, so the ranks keep on increasing ever so slightly with each and every passing minute. This is Zotile making his way around this Jeddah Corniche Circuit on his outlap. We had a very entertaining race in the second tier of Breakaway League racing. We'll get a sense of whether or not the top tier drivers can deliver something equally, if not more, entertaining. Of course, we are still in the throes of a thrilling championship battle between the likes of Seachley and Smirch Django. And speaking of Django, he would have been happy that he managed to build a little bit of a gap between himself and the table-topping Seachley, who could not race last time out. Django is top of the standings on 165 points. Seachley, the defending champion, currently second on 147 points. This man, Zotile, has been trying to string together a series of consistent race results and performances. He is currently 5th in the championship, is Zotile, with 50 championship points. He's got a golden opportunity here to improve on that tally and climb his way up this championship standings. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, he needs to navigate Sector 1 as the first driver to set a representative time out here in Jeddah. Takes a decent racing line out of the initial sequences of corners, and crosses Sector 1 with a 33.694 to be the first driver to set anything in the way of something representative. Zotile is, of course, going to be the early pace setter, and will lay down the gauntlet early. Comes through those sequences of corners which just come rushing at you in Sector 2. A lot of blind corners, as you can see. He's looking as far ahead as he possibly can, but the corners just rush at him, and his Sector 2 split is a 102.896, which is quite interesting considering Zotile is starting on the slower medium compound tires, which seems to be the preferred strategy at the start of this initial qualifying session. Here he comes now into the final corner, takes it cleanly, decent exit as he tucks into the slipstream of Mandla, who is only just beginning his hot lap. Zotile sets a benchmark of a 131.127. Definitely one to watch very, very closely. Mandla is next to begin his initial hot lap attempt. Let's see how he will fare. He is, of course, under pressure as Mandla. We spoke about him last time out. After the race in Belgium, he has racked up 8 championship points. He's still in the bottom 3, so still in those automatic relegation places. Lots of work for Mandla to do. Sector 1 split of a 33.682. Not too bad. Also in the medium tire compound, so he's saving those faster soft tires for Q2 and onwards. That is, of course, when the temperature and the pressure will ratchet up just a notch, and Q2 is where we'll see some drivers at risk of getting knocked out of this year's session. 13 minutes Mandla has to put something decent together. Yellow flags are way behind him on the track. A Sector 2 split is in there. 103s. Ooh, goes a little bit squirrely on the exit of that corner. Went wide through there, but thankfully for him, it was a section of the track which is kind as far as track limit incursions and possible invalidations are concerned. Here comes Mandla into the final corner. He takes that at about the 1 minute 25 second mark and will now open up that rear wing for DRS and come straight back into the pit lane. Interesting, because he hadn't invalidated, and all he needs to do here is just have a banker lap. So he just opted not to do that. And which of the McLarens is running furthermost ahead? The answer is this man, Capoza, who has already claimed a race win this, rather in the previous season. Just getting my bearings a little bit off. He's already claimed a couple of podiums, I beg your pardon. His best race finish was all the way back in Austria in the feature race, where he crossed the line P2. This is definitely a slow effort by the McLaren driver, only good enough for P2. 141.372 is, of course, nowhere near a representative effort. Let's catch up with Ingo Wacko, a.k.a. D-Wax, whose string of consistent finishes among the points was cut short unceremoniously when he sadly crashed out in Belgium last time out. He will look to rekindle and restart that streak, which will definitely go a long way in helping him up the championship standings. He's racked up 42 points since the start of the season, has D-Wax, and currently sits 6th in the driver's standings. Crosses the line, P2, tucks right behind Zotile. And I believe Mex is on the verge of crossing the line as I say so. He does that and sets the fastest time today. Medium tires, 131.047 is the new benchmark. Now, Espuda is currently on his outlap, on board now with the Red Bull driver. A driver who's commandeered a Red Bull. He's actually an AlphaTauri driver, but oddly has hopped into Fences and Tabo T92's Red Bulls. Well, let's see how he fares from here on out. It's Sector 3 for Espuda, who's really had a challenging season. Managed to finish in the points only once, and that was all the way back in Baku, the first race of the season. Here he comes now, across the line. 33.396 means he tucks right behind Ingo Wacko, a.k.a. D-Wax. Now, I wonder if Caboza is giving it a proper push this time out. Well, the answer is seemingly no. We could expect Caboza to be bringing it straight back into the pits. Here comes C-Clay. He's now significantly further ahead of the likes of Teppo Temba, who we are also going to check out at a later stage. We'll stay on board now with the three-time champion who could not take part in the race last time out. A rare absence from the grid. C-Clay, of course, is sensationally consistent, not only in race results, but also in attendance and actually being on track and racing and staking his claim for a possible race win. Right now, he's got 9.5 minutes to stake his claim for that P1 spot towards the end of Q1 and just knock Mex down a peg or two. Judging by his Sector 2 splits, which was in the 1 minute and 2 seconds, we may yet be in sight of a P1 time. Yes, it is. A 30.959 is the new benchmark, courtesy of the three-time champion. Here comes Teppo Temba, slow moving through Sector 3. Perhaps this is an in-lap, so instead we'll catch up with C-Clay's teammate, Smirts Django. There was trouble in paradise for Team Mercedes in Japan when there were a couple of barbs thrown the way of Smirts Django, a couple of questions of whether or not Django and Don Ravikar are colluding on track to deny C-Clay what would be a historic, sensational 4th straight championship in the top tier of Breakaway League racing. Well, Django and Don Ravico fought it out fiercely last time out in Belgium, and this time Django will look to stake his claim on a possible race win. But right now, on a set of soft compound tires, he could only do a 33.487. So a lot of time still to find as far as Django is concerned. What about Donathan Laka? Another of the rookies doing sensationally well since making the step up to the top tier. We are watching the Ferrari driver now who finished P5 in France. That was his season's best result up until this point. He's racked up 26 total points. He sits 11th in the driver's standings, so well and truly comfortable as this is race 10. After the night, we will have just 6 more races before this championship is well and truly concluded. So not very long to go as far as the season is concerned, and Don Lackas, who's coming up to the top tier, looking very, very good. We have just about 7.5 minutes as Don is the new pace setter, 30.955 on those soft compound tires. So just 4/1000th of a second between Don's time, table-topping time, if you could put it that way, and C-Clay's P2 effort there as well. Let's check up now with Teppo Temba. Is he really just going to bring that Aston Martin home? The answer is yes. He's going to do exactly that. Mandla is currently P5, and as things stand, is improving by a factor of about 4/10. Goes wide through that corner and spins to face the wrong way in Sector 3. So Mandla with a heart-in-mouth moment as he will thank his lucky stars that that almighty spin didn't send that car hurtling straight into the wall for a potential DNF, well, at least out of quali, which would have ruled him out of the rest of this session. On board now with Teppo Tempa's teammate, Ban Kobe, struggling for form, struggling for points, struggling for a semblance of consistency, and struggles on the exit of turn 2, sends it straight into the wall, and I do wonder if that's the front wing end plate or the wing itself. Yep, the front left wing end plate is gone. So Ban Kobe on a string of really, bad results and a string of struggles, a sequence of struggles since the season has started, has another moment added to that. And, that'll put him under a lot of pressure with just under 6 minutes of this session to go. I do wonder if he's still just going to push anyway, knowing that with there being so few drivers on track, all he needs to do is just to bring it home. No pressure as far as he's concerned. But he will not be happy with that at all. He opted also to come out on those medium compound tires. Ban Kobe is rock bottom of the championship standings, which, if you're a longtime viewer of Breakaway League racing, may sound odd or may sound surprising, considering he was one of the pacier drivers when he came up and was promoted to his top tier. But of course, adjusting to these new regulation cars, and of course the unfortunate circumstances as far as power supply across South Africa is concerned, has really impacted Ban Kobe's form and his flow and his ability to string together a sequence of good results. Right now he's just limping home, but he may yet be content to cross the line, have his banker lap in the bag, and thereafter just come home to the pits with his car well and truly intact. Don Lacka, Zotal, and Django, 3 drivers who've opted to retire in the pits, while the champion C-Clay is attempting to improve. But as he does so, comes a little bit unstuck towards that final corner. But thankfully for C-Clay, it was his out lap, so this is going to be his proper push lap. I think it's the same set. Medium compound tires, goes a little bit wide there through those initial sequences of corners, and we'll hope that will not compromise his prospect too much. We're going to catch up now and see how the rest of his lap will fare. Sector 1, heavy on the curve. Of course, C-Clay, no stranger to using all of the track limits, driving on the very edge as far as the limits are concerned. He improves by about 4/100ths of a second. So as things stand, it would definitely be enough to knock Donovan Lacka down from that P1 spot. And C-Clay could be going into Q2 top of the pops as far as that timing tower is concerned. He now makes his way through the second sector, looking absolutely good. That car just seems rooted to the track, as his Sector 2 split means that he's improved overall by about 2.5 tenths of a second. So we may yet see Seekle breaching into the 1 minute 30.6 if that momentum of improving by a couple of tenths is concerned. But we will see what it looks like by the time he crosses the line. Yes, it's a 1:30.728, the new fastest time of the day. And Seekle just nursed that Mercedes W13 back home, knowing that it is job done in this first quali session. He's done what he set out to do, and his mission today is to bridge that gap between himself and Smirch Django. Seekle, 147 points. Django, 165 points. So he knows what he has to do. It is win or nothing. That is pretty much all he has his sights set on, and he, of course, will show his class and show his quality, and show that, well, it's not going to be party time for all the rookies, the quick rookies that have come into the top tier. Seekle being Seekle, he will do what needs to be done to fight for the race win. If you've just joined us, we're at the tail end of the first of 3 qualifying sessions here, and in Q2, the stakes are going to go up a notch, and one of these drivers is going to get knocked out, and thereafter it's the scrap and the almighty fight for pole position by the time we get to Q3. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you've seen so far, as well as who you project to be in those top 3 spots by the time we get to the end. Zotai looked good when he came out earlier on, as did Mix, as did Don, and they ran medium tires, with the exception of Don, of course. So time will tell who will have the last lap around here. It's a beautiful, challenging track, as we've mentioned. The corners just come rushing at you around here, and the first Grand Prix was raced around here back in 2021. We will have 25 laps of racing when things get started at the end of qualifying. It's a circuit length of 6.174, so definitely among the more lengthy on the calendar. And the track record, the lap record, is held by none other than Lewis Hamilton. It's a 1:30.734. In the real world, of course, circumstances slightly different on this here game. Thank you for choosing Breakaway League Racing. It's the end of Q1. Everybody seems content just to retire those cars as the clock ticks down to the final few seconds. As Buddha is through to Q2, golden opportunity he has to gain some points. We've mentioned Bankobi struggles. As Buddha also there and thereabouts as far as being in dire need of points. As Buddha, 9 championship points. He currently sits in P17, and that means he's at risk of dropping down into the bottom 3. Mandla is trying to overtake Esbuda. Mandla has 1 less point. Now, Seekle, quickest in Q1 from Don, who opted to run soft compound tires. The gap between them about 2/10. Mex went 3rd quickest from Zotal, Mandla, and Gawako, a.k.a. D-Wax. Esbudo in 7th. Django 8th. Bankobi 9th. Kaposa 10th. Seppo Temba is going to be here from the start. Good for him. He crossed the line P11, but that is not a representative time, of course, knowing what kind of speed he is capable of. Seekle opted to use the 1 set of mediums, as did the Mex, Zotal, and the like. And we now move straight on to the second quali session. Minutes is the benchmark, or rather is the allotted time that all these drivers will have to stake their claim on a spot in Q3. It's a very simple game in qualifying. Just go around the track as fast as you can, and in this particular session, only the 10 quickest drivers will go through. So one of these drivers is getting knocked out unless we have an unceremonious DNF. Unless someone sends it into the wall and totals their car, then, That'll definitely decrease the pressure on the drivers who remain out on track. It's an early start for the likes of Bankobi, Mandla, as you've mentioned. This man under immense pressure in the unfamiliar territory of the bottom of the championship standings. Interestingly, this, in previous years, is actually one of Bankobi's favorite tracks. In the previous generation of cars, he was absolutely sensational around this circuit. Drove with absolute freedom and just embraced those blind corners with a swagger and an abandon, which was quite admirable. But this time, it has not been that easy. Well, thankfully for Bankobi, he only has to worry about knocking out one other driver, and we do wonder who that will be. Mex has looked very, very comfortable and solid since getting promoted to the top tier Breakaway League Racing. Very comfortable in P4 in the driver's standings, just 1 point behind his teammate Caboza. It's a very, very good showing by the rookie driver over here. Mr. Dlamini asks, Daniel the commentator, Uyakapuka. My name is Baba Connor. It's good to have you in the comments. Yes, let's look at Bankobi and see how he fares. Sector 1 for the driver under pressure. Sap compound tires for him. Has a little bit of a moment in the initial sequences of corners and tries to regain a little bit of composure. That'll cost him a couple of tenths. Bankobi under pressure needs to put something together. The sector 1 split is a 34.510. It is a little slower than some of the drivers who are on mediums, and Bankobi has a moment with the wall. Again, this time at the end of Sector 1, his wing is still intact, thankfully for him, so he's perhaps still going to want to push and bring that car home, but that'll definitely sap his confidence. It'll definitely drain whatever little bit of confidence he may have had, and Bankobi is now having to regain composure, grit his teeth, and keep on pushing. Sector 2 split, 104.528. Definitely on the verge of being challenged by the likes of Mandla and Zotal, who are following behind him. Bankobi is giving it a final push, a final go. He's going to be content, perhaps, just across the line, have his banker lap in the bag, and then perhaps just regain composure in the paddock, in the pits, and come out once again and give it a proper push. The answer is actually no. He's going to send it straight into the pit lane. Mandla, his Sector 2 split was significantly quicker than Bankobi, so he'll go top of the pops. 31.264. Zotal is next. Zotal is into the 30s. 130.269 for Zotal. And Gawako, D-Wax, is next. He is P3 behind Zotal. One of the Mercedes is going to go top of the pops. First driver into the 29s. 129.773 for the three-time champion Seapley. Donathan Laka will be next across the line, as Mex has also gone into the 230s. The 130s, I beg your pardon. Donathan Laka is going to go P4, 130.886 in that Scuderia Ferrari. So good look for the rookie driver. Smirts Django goes even quicker than his teammate. And once again, at the top tier Breakaway League Racing, the intra-team rivalry has been rekindled, resumed by Django, the rookie, fighting to claim this championship from his teammate. Buddha is on the verge of setting his initial banker lap, and it's going to be a 32.605, putting him in P8. Definitely a lot of room for improvement for the driver who is in the Red Bull today. We still want to see what Seppo Temba can do. Bankobi came unstuck and was not looking very good, not looking very comfortable at all. What can he do now? He's got 10 minutes, does Bankobi, as Buddha is probably going to bring this car into the pit lane. As you can see, that red fuel light is flashing, meaning he is really out of fuel. Bankobi has left the session. What is going on there? I do hope it's a minor network glitch and that we can see Bankobi back in the reckoning to actually start this race later on. Buddha, P8 for him. He's got his work cut out, does Buddha. Now, the Mercedes cars should be coming back into the pit lane, but this man, Caboza, is making his way all the way around. Everybody else should start making their way back into the pits, and Tsepo Temba seemingly has just left the pits and is on the verge of beginning a fresh banker lap. So the Aston Martin driver, another one to watch very, very closely. But this man, Kaboza, will begin his initial banker lap before him. Now, he's looked very good, as we've mentioned. He's already racked up a podium finish, has Kaboza. Last season, he was the only driver to deny Sikle a race win in what was a dominant showing by the defending champion. Kaboza has really come on in leaps and bounds with each and every passing season. And with about 8.5 minutes of this session to go, he will show exactly what he is made of. On board now with the McLaren driver into turn 1. He nails that apex and will look not to compromise his line at all. He gets a clean exit. Sadly, Liddy, it seems Don Rabico is gallivanting in the comment section and not able to race because of the load shedding. Here comes Kaboza's response to the time set by the likes of Django and Sikle. It's sector 1. It's clean. It's gear 6 through these sequences of corners towards the end of sector 1, and Kaboza will mark that sector with a 33.401 split. So not bad, not too shabby by Kaboza, who has put on those fastest soft compound tires. Now making his way through this challenging sequence of corners where we saw a couple of drivers come unstuck, and it was that sequence of corners where Ban Kobe had a moment with the wall a little bit earlier on, but not Kaboza. Still keeping it clean. Now making his way towards that Sector 2 split, which is looking good, 102.670 for the McLaren driver, who will look to give his teammates a lot to think about. Tsepo Temba seemingly may just have given up on his push lap attempt, because that is who Kaboza was passing out on the pits. So Tsepo Temba is going to need to give it another go from scratch, as most of the grid is back in the pit lane. Now, here comes Kaboza across the line, 30.386 P5, tucks right behind Zotai. And they then form a McLaren sandwich, if you will, with Zotai being the piece of meat. And Ngobako, a.k.a. D-Wax, is still giving it a proper push. Kaboza is happy to retire his car with that time, which put him in P5. So Kaboza is confident that none of the drivers towards the bottom will challenge that 130.386 and knock him out automatically. And Ngobako, a.k.a. D-Wax, perhaps treating Q2 as a practice session. That red light is flashing, and he's been on the same set of tires, so it would be surprising if he were to somehow improve on his best, which is that 30.508. And with that red fuel light flashing, he may well be bringing it straight back into the pits. And we've got 6 minutes of this session to go. Ban Kobe, Tsepo Temba, the Aston Martin duo need to set their banker laps. Otherwise, they would really come unstuck here. And if not for Ban Kobe's confidence, he definitely needs it, just to make sure that he guarantees his spot in Q3 here. Tsepo Temba, superb talent, hasn't had the best of seasons by his lofty standards. Another driver who in previous seasons just took to the top tier of Breakaway League racing like a duck to water and looked very, very comfortable challenging for podiums and fighting it out in seasons past, fighting it out for race wins. But this time out, he started the season with a couple of DNFs and then recovered to finish P4 in Monza. That was the fourth scheduled race of the season. He crossed the line 8th in France, came home 4th again in the feature race in Austria, and thereafter, Japan, he finished 8th. And in between, he crashed out in Singapore and also crashed out of the last race in Belgium. A couple of DNFs there, so it's been a mixed bag for Tsepo Temba. But despite that, he's racked up 35 championship points, including feature races and that sprint in Austria. And he currently sits 9th in the driver's standings. So, if it could be a good day, a solid showing, without incidents, and it's a good quality and a good Q3 as well. You never know what he could do and what kind of a say he could have as far as the race win is concerned. Turns 1 and 2 without issue for Seppo Temba, and of course the exit of turn 2 is one where you've got to be really gradual with the throttle. If you hit it too hard, you could possibly lose that rear end. We've already seen one of the drivers coming unstuck in sector 1 here. Gear 6 as well for Seppo Temba through these final sequences of turns to conclude his first sector, which will have a split of a 33.171 with just over 3.5 minutes of this session to go. He's looking good. He's looking solid. He's looking very comfortable. Is the Aston Martin driver, who is pretty much his team's hope for making it through comfortably through to Q3 as far as this session is concerned. Bankovic needs to rejoin the lobby as Bankovic gets a word of support from Lydia in the comment section. Back on board now with the Aston Martin driver. 102.207 is a very decent Sector 2 split by Seppo Temba, who gets a decent exit out of that sequence of the corners. Mercurial Caesar says, if only I could race here. Well, Mercurial, we've seen your performances in the third tier, and we know you've got exactly what it takes to be making your mark even on this tier. And I, for one, cannot wait to see your progress through the Breakaway Racing League ladder. Here comes Seppo Temba across the line. 29.977 is going to be good enough for P3 as Q2 ticks towards its inevitable conclusion. So Seppo Temba will breathe a sigh of relief. Becomes one of only 3 drivers to set a time in the 1 minute 29 seconds. Looking absolutely comfortable in that P3 spot. And let's catch up now with S. Buda, who's nominally an Aston Martin driver. Today has commandeered the Red Bull of Fente and Tabo T92, Sector 1 for the this particular driver who knows what he needs to do. Oh, gets a little bit wide on those sequences of corners. You really have to be inch perfect as far as your racing line through that Sector 1 is concerned. Regardless, he has improved by about half a second at his Sector 1 split. He's got just 2 minutes to stake his claim on that final Q3 spot. Remember, only 10 going through to that top 10 shootout. And that battle for pole position, as Buda is looking comfortable enough to still be improving. Seppo Temba makes way sportingly, and he's still maintaining that half a second improvement at the end of Sector 2. Looking decent, and opens up that rear wing, that DRS, and sends that car screaming down towards the final left-hander. We will hope to get that entry and exit inch perfect. Fairly close to the wall there, but no issues for us. Buda, again, for the last time, opens up that rear wing, hurdles towards the line, P8, 130.814. And with that, it means Mandla is the only driver to fall out of that 1 minute 30 second benchmark. Mex having issues with his network, dipping in and out of the lobby. Hopefully we could have him back and online and ready and set to begin this race by the time the end of Q3 comes around, or indeed the beginning of Q3, as Espuda is now going to bring his car home, as will the likes of Donathan Laka, who opted rather just to come back into the pits, knowing that his spot in Q3 is well and truly secured. So Donathan Laka would have been a little bit worried there, but he could breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that he got the job done. Well, if you've just joined us, you're just in time for the third and final quali session in this 10th race of a 16-race Breakaway League racing season. And we'll soon get to see how these drivers fare in that top 10 shootout. Seaflay is here, Smirch Django is here. They've been fighting it out beautifully all throughout the season. We could expect them to have a say. But look at Seppo Temba's time, 29.977. If you can do that or even improve marginally, well, that may yet throw the cat among the pigeons at Team Mercedes. And we may yet be in line for a tantalizing battle in the third and final qualifying session.
Jeddah joined the last mile of Singapore, operating in the streets of concentration.
As Buddha has brought his car safely back home, the mechanics just do what they need to do to make sure that that car is comfortable and set and snug and good to go. That's it, folks. That's your top 10. Those are your gladiators in the scuffle, the battle royale for pole position. Coming up next in the top tier Breakaway League Racing, the top two, the Mercedes pair separated by just 11/100ths of a second. Seppo Temba just 0.2 off the top two. Mex was half a second off the pace setter, that being Django. Zotal, 5th quickest. Kaboza, 6th. Ngawako went 7th quickest from Esbuda, Donathan Laka, and Mandla, who was through to Q3. But that gap from P8 onwards is more than a second behind the top runner. Most of the pack using 2 sets of tires, with the exception of Sithle, Kaboza, and Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, who was looking very, very good out here. Sadly, Bankobi did not set a time, and that pretty much, that rules him out of a spot, really, as far as Q3 is concerned. And hopefully he can make it back into the lobby to begin things in earnest. Well, there you have it, folks. We have 12 minutes for these drivers to show us what they're made of, to stake their claim on that top spot to start the race out here in Saudi Arabia in P1 and in the best possible position to challenge for what would be a memorable race win. The second tier of Breakaway League Racing gave us a beautiful exhibition of racing last night. Hopefully we could get that or even more from the top tier of a Breakaway. Mambla, once again, not wasting any time. Neither is Kapoza. And, of course, the 3-time defending champion Sithle, who has come under immense pressure like never before this time around. And Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, as we've mentioned, looking very good, looking comfortable in that 6th spot in the driver's standings. So we'll see what he is made of, but it looks like Kaboza may yet be the first driver to give us a representative quali effort. They're moving fairly close together, are the drivers. Everyone from Zotal in front of him is Mandla, then you have Sithle in front of Mandla, and Kaboza slightly ahead. Kaboza will be, of course, the driver to give us that initial push lap, so we'll see how he fares from here on out. No messing around. He started on mediums in Q1, knowing, of course, that it was low stakes, with nobody on the verge of getting kicked out. But right now, it's his game face, it's the fastest tire compound, and it's the main straight for Kaboza, who will look once more to get an inch-perfect run into turn 1, and indeed the rest of that initial sector. Not looking too bad. A little bit of a twitch there just to adjust his line, and he now comes into the left-hander, looking to stay on the absolute limit, but of course not risk an invalidation at all. Heavy across the curves there, but he manages to keep that car glued to the track and keeps his line inch perfect. He likes taking that sequence of corners through gear 6, does Kaboza, and he takes this left-hander in through fourth gear. Behind Kaboza is, of course, none other than the champion. And I do wonder what kind of sector splits we will be seeing on these initial runs and those final runs towards the end of this session. Here comes the McLaren driver towards the end of the second sector. Again, blind corners rushing towards him. You can barely see them. 102.450 is the split at the end of sector 2. Has a little bit of a moment that'll compromise his run in the beginning of the third sector. Cost him a couple of tenths. Definitely, because you really had to make some adjustments coming out of that end of Sector 2 and to begin this third and final sector. But Kaboza will be the man to lay down the early benchmark and, of course, will immediately be challenged by Cicle behind him. Here comes Kaboza. 30.454 is his effort. What about Cicle? He goes quicker. 29.5 for the champion. Romeo Mandla is next. And for him, it's going to be a 30.1629. Zotal goes second quickest. I take that back because Ngawako, aka D-Wax, has just pipped Zotal. Tempo Tando across the line, 30.894, good enough for P5, knocking Mandla, Romeo down to P6 as things currently stand. Smirch Django, Cicle's challenger, Cicle's teammate, Cicle's thorn in his side, will cross the line with a 28.978 by some margin, the quickest time that we have seen today. So Smirch Django with the early benchmark over here, and the new time to beat. Donathan Laka has also crossed the line with a 30.838, and man, oh man, what a sensational run and sensational effort that was by Django, being cheered on in the comments by Tabang and Manguni, saying the Django with the fire emoji. And justifiably so, because he has absolutely set a scorcher of a lap here to put himself in provisional pole position. He's got about 7 minutes of this session to go, as Zotal now dips out of the session. Hopefully it's just a minor blip as far as his network prospects are concerned. Zotal has his Branker lap in the bag. He's back in the pits, and we'll see what he is made of. Cicle will be well aware by now what the new benchmark is. He did the champion, set a 29.5, which is definitely not to be scoffed at, but right now, man, that new benchmark is absolutely sensational. Tindo in the comments says Django is haunting this field. He's haunting the top tier of Breakaway League racing. Absolutely. As we now catch up with Kaboza's teammate, making his way through Sector 2. What kind of a split will he have? He's on the limits, almost invalidating there, but he managed to keep it intact. It's not going to be a hugely challenging effort, seemingly. The champ will be back, says Tabanga Maguni. His Sector 2 split is in the 113, so no, I think this is definitely nowhere near a representative time as far as Mex is concerned. And as that red light is flashing, he may yet be on the verge of bringing this McLaren back home. A word for Ngawako, aka D-Wax. Sensational effort for him. Currently P3 with a 30.002. Finds himself ahead of Zotal, and he's in a rich vein of form, is D-Wax. Been looking very, very good this season, and well, if he can keep this up, or if he can possibly improve, it's going to be an absolutely beautiful conclusion to his season. Currently finding himself third quickest of the bunch. Thank you for the good words, Mr. Lamini. Django was ruthless, says Manray. Kaboza barely believing what Django has just done there with that sensational quality effort. Bad Kobe is back in the lobby, which is good news as far as the race start is concerned. Manray says, I saw Mandla and Zotal giving each other a slipstream. Well, that is interesting from the from the co-competitors. Tindo says the champion will always be the champion, but this time we might have a new champion, a new sheriff in town, says Tindo, speaking about Django. Scripto Titan, aka Galalit Sang, aka the 86er, asks, where the heck has D-Wax found all this pace? Well, we don't know. I am not D-Wax wenzani. Marangamtshela ukuthi ayibule mechanic le seFosloras. Bafaka ama spark plug nyane ya isho yabona bheka manje bafakile unama spark lapha bafaka ama spark plug ayi3 yabo. That's why ava kanjini ile mechanic seFosloras. Punching an unintossed. Yes, apparently Bertox thinks there's a mechanic involved on this who's having the Guaco out. We cannot confirm that. We're just going to have to check our sources. But right now, something that we're going to watch very closely, and indeed on board, is none other than Seaclay's response. Oh no. He opts to come back into the pit lane. I was hoping to see the champion give it another push, another go. But not now. He's going to bide his time, will Seaclay, and perhaps give it another push a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Seppo Temba is on the verge of beginning what we can assume will be his final push and his final hot lap attempt. Behind him, S. Buddha is also giving it a proper push and a proper go. Seppo Temba also comes back into the pits. So surprisingly, every time we just try to check up on somebody, they bring it straight back into the pits. Here comes S. Buddha on concluding his push lap attempt, and it's a decent effort. 30.221 means provisionally S. Buddha could be starting this race in P5, which would be a sensational day for Team AlphaTauri. His teammate Ngawako Dwax currently sits P3. Now, of course, nominally, today S. Buddha is in a Red Bull, but he's actually an AlphaTauri driver, so man, oh man. What an effort that would be if he manages to keep it together. Meanwhile, Kaboza is giving it a final push, and look how far on the limit he is driving. He almost had a moment with the wall to Kaboza. He kisses the wall a little bit there, and he's on the verge of invalidation, but he absolutely does not do that. He is pushing as much as he can, and as he does so, he improves by about 2/100ths of a second. Kaboza on the final push for Team McLaren, looking to wave that papaya orange flag as high as he possibly can, and possibly give Zotile a lot of nightmares, or even Ingowako, or hey, maybe even the top runners, but he's got a lot of time to find before he can even think about challenging the top two as things currently stand. Even so, that said, his Sector 1 split was good enough for a slight improvement, and sadly for him, his Sector 2 split is a slower effort. He's lost a 10th. Has Kaboza, so not looking good by the time he gets to the end of Sector 2. It's going to need to be a miraculous third and final sector if Kaboza is going to try and pip S. Buddha, but it's going to take a miracle for him to find at least 3/10, considering the time that he had lost up until that point. Regardless, he's still sending it, still pushing it. He does improve by almost 4/10. So it's a P5 for Kaboza, and he will wonder what could have been were it not for those mistakes, which slowed him down on his effort. Meanwhile, it looks like Donathan Laka, was given it a push, but he goes off the track in that initial corner, and that red light is flashing. He may not have the fuel on board to be able to try and give it another go. Donathan Laka easing off the throttle there, and the best that he could do up until this point with that 30.468. So we're going to have to watch and wait and see whether or not he could be challenging. Let's get back to that man, Smirts Django, who's on the verge of beginning his challenger attempt. Seppo Temba is also on the verge of possibly improving. Can he do that, I wonder? Or perhaps Seppo Temba is also on the verge of beginning his hot lap attempt. On board now with the challenger who leads the driver's standings. Takes turn 1 in gears 3, goes down to gear 2 through turn 2, and manages to keep it clean on the exit. Django knows it is now or never as far as either A, cementing his position on that provisional top spot, or B, possibly fumbling and handing all the initiative to Seaclay. He's really on the limit coming through those sequences, those final sequences of corners through the end of Sector 1. He has improved. His Sector 1 split is quicker by 1/10.5. So Django is on the verge of something absolutely special here as we come to the end of qualifying out here at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. Looking good, looking comfortable, looking clean, flirts with the wall, but does not make any contact whatsoever. Ericsson looks to carry as much speed as he possibly can, driving through gritted teeth, razor sharp focus, and it's almost a 3/10 improvement by the time he gets to the end of Sector 2. Django putting in a Hall of Fame potential performance here in the final qualifying session in Jeddah, giving it an absolute full send towards the end of quali here. Scripto Titan, the 86er, who's been monitoring Seaplay, remarks that Django's been going even faster than the champion. Here he comes across the line. He improves. It's a 28.647 at the end of quali, and he holds on to provisional pole. But what will be Seaplay's response? He's been improving as well. 8. He could not breach into the 28th. Zotal, 29.7 is going to be P3 provisionally as things stand. And Gawako, aka D-Wax, who has been absolutely sensational in qualifying this entire session, does not look to be improving. 29.8 seems like it's the best that he will be able to do, so he will hope that Espuda does not improve. And as I say that, he is coming into the pit lane. So, your starting grid will be the Mercedes pair of Django and Seaplay. But a word for the challenger, because that 28.647 is absolutely sensational from the rookie driver. Seaplay huffed and puffed, but could not blow the house down. He will have to settle for P2. It's a front row lockout for Team Mercedes. Zotal will be absolutely ecstatic with that time, putting him on the second row alongside Ngawako, aka D-Wax. What a sensational season he is having. Sepotemba P5, Kaboza P6, Esbuda, I believe, is in P7. Mex P8, Donathon Laka P9, Mandla will start this race in P10. Man, oh man, oh man, what a beautiful end to that quali session we had. Tabanga Manguni says that was clean. Django faster than Seaplay, as 86er mentioned. Man Ray says the closer you are to the wall, Django will put a dream lap. Tabang barely believing how quick Django is, as Tindo says, man, it can't be. Django, what are you doing? Kid K barely believing the kind of times and the efforts that he's seeing. Man Ray says Seaplay, we expected the top 1% lap here. Well, let's see race management. Of course, it is not over. We know what Seaplay is capable of, as Seaplay used 3 sets of soft compound tires in this session, but try as he might, he could not come close to the absolute scorcher that his teammate put in as far as that effort is concerned. Cepiso will be racing here, so the presence of the Haas driver will be felt, and let's see what he can do from the back of the pack. Ban Kobe will be there and thereabouts as well, fighting it out with Cepiso at the back of this pack here. But we will have 25 laps of racing around this oh-so iconic Jeddah Corniche Circuit, which has served up some sensational racing from our tiers here in Breakaway League Racing. It's a beautiful evening. And the 86er, noting, of course, that Seaplay's race pace is always strong. You can never, ever count the champion out. He's the defending champion for a reason, and he's got the bit within his teeth this year, courtesy of the introduction of Smirch Django and Don Radico. Stay tuned. It's the top tier of Breakaway League Racing. Up next.
يعني le mechanic safohlora simzamile ulele ungwakho naye batshela amanye ama-driver uthulile manje utholile ipace uthulile batshele ngakho ukuthi le mechanic ikenzeleni.
Yes, apparently rumors about the mechanics from Vaslaris on the east of South Africa's Gauteng province. Well, Ngawako would have to confirm that on his own accord. We're going to have to wait and see. Right now he's looking very, very good. He was definitely one of the most consistent drivers. Django versus Seaplay at the start of this race. Don't discount Kaboza. We know how sensational his race starts are. He's starting not necessarily among the front runners, but we can expect to see Kaboza challenging. And Zotal also knows what he needs to do here. He just needs to minimize those unforced errors, keep it clean, and he definitely has the raw pace in race trim to also give us a memorable day here. 86er says expecting a podium from Zotal. Let's hope we get that. That would be good. That would be very, very timely. Looking forward to that. Just a couple of seconds before we get the formation lap underway and we get a sense of what the thinking is as far as strategy is concerned. Well. Looks like the odd man out is P7 running as Buddha. Everybody else on the same tire strategy, opting to start this race on those medium compound tires. As Buddha taking the road less taken, if you will. The alternate route, or as they say in South Africa, the short left. Hard tires, so he's going to go long initially here. And let's see how he fares. He's going to be under duress, under pressure from this man, Mex, who has also demonstrated a tendency to be absolutely sensational off the race start. So look out for how his start comes off. Donovan Laka, P9 for him. Not where he would want it to be. Also a very, very pacey man. Mandla will start in 10th. Bankobi, 11th. And Tsepiso at the back of the pack. Tsepiso, nominally a Haas driver, today has commandeered Fence's Red Bull. Zotal has bad starts every race, so remarks Lungello. Yeah, sadly for Zotal, it's an element of his driving which really needs to improve significantly. We've already seen such improvements from this man, Sikwe, who was really struggling at race starts, not only this season but also last year. But as the months have ticked on along, as the weeks have rolled on, you've really seen a marked improvement, and Sikwe has been able to hold off potential challengers when the lights go out. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. Zotal on those mediums will also need to do what needs to be done to make sure that he stays in firm command of his potential podium finish here. Long way to go. 25 laps is what we're on the brink of here in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, as the back markers look to find their way towards the line. Ban Kobe weaving to the left and to the right. Formation lap, the purpose thereof, of course, is just to warm up those tires, get them into an optimum condition to be able to have as much grip off the line as possible. And here we go. Welcome to the top tier of Breakaway League Racing. It is 4 lights, 5 lights, the only time South Africans look forward to the lights going out. We are racing in Saudi Arabia. It looks like D-Wax has not had the best of starts. Sikle is challenging for the race lead. It looks like Django slightly went offline. Sikle, will he get that overtake done? The answer is yes. Sikle with a sensational race start, stamping his authority on the race lead. But what about Tempo Temba gaining 2 places, as has Kaposa, and Kawako, aka D-Wax, was in a prime position, as was Zotal, who finds himself in P11. We were just speaking about the need for Zotal to get it right at the race start, but he's now fighting his way from the back of the pack as the top runners are really scrapping it out on these initial laps. What a beautiful race start by the champion, who really strong-armed his teammate, and Django went offline, went off the track, which compromised his exit coming through the second corner. And Sikle needed no second invitation, as it looks like we've seen someone else, as Buddha, tumbling down the order, as some of the people in the comments could barely believe how Zotal has squandered that race start. Tepo Tamba currently in 3rd place from Kaposa, who's gained 2 places, and Gowako, aka D-Wax, is under pressure from Mex coming into the left-hander, but Ngawako holds on to there, as Mex had to concede and try not to make too much contact with the Alpha Tauri driver. Back to the battle for the race lead. Tepo Tamba is having an absolutely sensational day, as he is being hunted down by none other than Kaposa. Behind these guys, it looks like Mandla has overtaken Donovan Laka who is also struggling to gain a little bit of an advantage. Seekley crosses the line. Of course, that will be that initial fastest lap, understandably. And as these laps tick on from lap 2 to 3, we'll get a sense of whether or not Seppo Temba and Smirch Django's efforts are going to be enough to challenge for that fastest lap. Lap 2:25. Ooh, Kaboza brakes later than Seppo Temba, who was much more circumspect on those brakes. And Kaboza almost had the moment with the rear wing of the Aston Martin in front of him. And he loses a little bit of momentum as he was just readjusting his line to make sure that he does not make contact with Seppo Temba in front of him. A beautiful fight back, a beautiful potential say in the race result as far as the win is concerned for Seppo Temba, if he can keep it together between now and the end of this race. So much racing still to go. We've seen a couple of yellow flags, we've seen drivers tumble down the order, but thankfully no safety cars as yet. So that is your race as far as position changes are concerned. Some of the big movers we had mentioned. Another word for this man, Ban Kobe, who is currently being hunted down by Donovan Laka. Ban Kobe, starting at the back of the pack, finds himself in P7, taking full advantage of the circumstances here, but Donovan Laka almost making contact with the back of that car. He is now under pressure from Zotal on his fight back. Zotal on the outside of the Ferrari. Will Zotal get that done? On the outside of Zotal, Donovan Laka will defend the inside, but he's nowhere near good enough to defend that P8 spot, which has been commandeered by Zotal. Mandla has lost all the momentum as well. He finds himself at the back of the pack. P11 for him. He needs to change his wing, as Buddha may have already done so because he's at the back of the pack by a full pit stop distance already. So a lot of early stops here as these drivers battle for momentum and battle really to stay in touch with the leading pack as far as, of course, the likes of Kaboza are concerned. These top four have already built up a 2.9 second buffer between themselves and the drivers behind them. Kaboza makes that a 3 second gap between himself and Ingawako, aka D-Wax. But of course, on board with the Kaboza, the two Mercedes have built up all the momentum, and Seppo Temba, unforced error, spins and faces the wrong way and ghosts out and is surpassed by the likes of Ingawako and Mix. And what was looking to be a beautiful result for Seppo Temba now sees him in contention for a midfield scrap with none other than Ban Kobe, who catches up with each and every sector of this race. So nightmare scenario for Seppo Temba is going to now have to fight his way down from that, fight his way up from P6. There's a scrap for the lead of the race, and there's a scrap for P5. Mex versus Ngawako for P4 rather. He makes it a Mercedes 3-4 as he gets the smoothest of overtakes on the inside of Ngawako, whose beautiful quali has not necessarily been as smooth as far as maintaining his momentum and the race is concerned. Mex is now 4.2 seconds behind his teammate, and he's going to look to build and stretch that gap between himself and Ngawako. Mini DRS train from Mex all the way down to Seppo Temba here. It's a three-way fight as Mex is not having such a good time from this particular camera angle, but he manages to keep it together and hangs on to keep that little semblance of momentum to keep Ngawako D-Wax at bay here. Running P5 is the AlphaTauri driver, still a decent position, all things considered, but now he's going to have the prospect, the specter of Seppo Temba to fight off. Currently P6 is the Aston Martin driver. We saw him make that huge mistake a couple of laps ago, but right now it is once again driving through gritted teeth, and his only mission, his only concern is making sure that he can eke out as many tenths as he possibly can. As we do so, let's catch up with the battle for the race lead, because at some point Django was about a tenth behind his teammate Kaboza, breathing through the wound, struggling to keep up. Here comes Django on he thought about going on the outside, but he really just gave it another look, and he opted just to stay tucked into the slipstream of his teammate, and also trying to save as much battery as he can But as he does so, look at Clay leading the race. And you would think that he would be using much more battery than the person in P2. But no, he's still been managing to save his battery. He's got a full battery, does the race leader. So once again, driving an ice-cold race. Ice in his veins. That's why he's the champion. That's why he is the gold standard in the top tier of this here league. This is Django's perspective. As further down the grid, it looks like Zotao has had to come in for a very early pit. Perhaps Zotao took some wing damage. He's all the way down in P10 on a fresh set of hard tires in Zotao as we watch this battle for the race lead. Django also trying not to use too much of his own battery power. Clay could end up pooing bricks at this rate. So says Grimjaw. Man, oh man, oh man. Tindo in the comment section.
Tindo, I'm an X. I have a couple of yes. I have a couple of group. I have a couple at the back, or I have a couple to P2.
Well, perhaps Tindo reckons that some of the Exco members are keeping potential tier 2 drivers company here. As we watch Django think about going on the inside, going into turn 1, but bides his time and will perhaps go for it on another section of track. Back to the battle between Teppo Temba and Ngawako and Mex. I would have you know that Mex, meanwhile, has stretched his advantage to about a second and a half from Ngawako, who was fighting to keep this man, Teppo Temba, off his back. Lap 6 of 25. We're on board with Teppo Temba, who could have been in contention, of course, for the podium places, but right now we'll just have to hold his nerve and keep it clean between now and the end of the race. We have not had a safety car at all, not even virtual safety car, so it's looking very good here. It's been a decent race, some decent entertainment. Teppo Temba is managing to find a couple of tenths with each and every lap, definitely improving, getting quicker as that fuel load gets lighter and lighter with each and every passing lap, naturally. Everybody in the top 9 positions has managed to keep their cars intact on track without needing to come into the pits. Zotao running in P10 has already pitted, as has Espuda and Mandla, who makes up the back of this here pack. Teppo Temba hunting down Ngawako. Lap 6 of 25. And Ngawako looking absolutely comfortable. I do wonder how much battery he's been using as we get that beautiful sweeping overhead shot from the heli cam. And Ngawako is down to about 33% worth of battery power compared to Teppo Temba, who's been saving his battery and finds himself hovering at the 76% mark. He uses DRS, he saves his battery once again. He's really pushing the AlphaTauri along. He wants Ngawako, D-Wax, to just keep on draining that battery. And if Teppo Temba can smell even the tiniest bit of blood, the tiniest possibility of an overtake, he will just get it done and use his superior battery power to just eke out as much of an advantage as he possibly can. So, interesting chess match between these two. Teppo Temba just hoping that Ngawako loses all of that momentum and battery power. Django is getting each and every DRS. That says Tabang in the comment section. Absolutely, we'll catch up with that battle for the race lead. Donathon Laka running in P7, about 5.5 seconds behind Teppo Temba. Tsepiso, P8, quiet race for him thus far. He's running a bit of a lonely race with a lot of breathing room, a fair amount of breathing room in front of him and behind him. Bad Kobe is about 4 seconds behind Tsepiso. Zotao an entire 14 seconds, and hunting Zotao down is this man, Espuda, P11. And Romeo is at the back of the pack. Now, back to the front we go. Smirch Django is going for it. Smirch Django has taken the fastest lap. Clay defends the inside line. A little bit of contact between the Mercedes drivers, but nothing terminal, nothing to send them into a little bit of a tizzle or a spin. Django hangs on to the coattails of Clay, who is content to keep his teammate at bay. And once again, despite being in the race lead, racing in clean air, not having the advantage of DRS, Clay superior battery power. Clay just keeping Django frustrated and just making sure that his teammates drains as much of his battery as he possibly can. Seakley playing the long game here. He's content to just use his superior race pace to frustrate Django each and every opportunity he could possibly get. It's now lap 8 of a total 25, and these top two drivers have built a 6.2 second advantage to this man, Capoza, who has been trying as much as he possibly can to stay in touch, but with each and every passing stage of this race, he just slips further and further out of the clutches of the top two. Mex has done well to find himself in P4. He, of course, will be looking over his shoulder because Ngawako is about a second and a half behind the second McLaren driver, Seppo Temba, still in the hunt. This is one of the closer battles currently taking place. We've seen the battle for the race lead, but this one also incredibly intriguing as well. And I do wonder, as they now make their way towards the final straight, if this will be where Seppo Temba will go for it. He's very, very close, as the top two have already come through the initial sequence of corners, and it's still Seakley leading from Django. Here comes Seppo Temba, tucks on the inside. They're wheel to wheel, side by side. It's a clean overtake, and Ngawako has to concede and contend with that P6 spot. But he's not going to go down without a fight. It's Thursday action night. 11% worth of battery power remaining, but he may not have enough in the bag to challenge Seppo Temba, who already has built up a 7/10 advantage, and soon to be 8/10, soon to be 9/10. Oh, try as he might, he doesn't seem to have it in the bags in the Wacko.
I say we don't have the capacity. We don't have the capacity.
He don't got the facilities for that big man. He don't got the facilities. And Ngawako trying hard, pushing as hard as he can, but Seppo Temba is out of his clutches. He's eked out a 1.4 second advantage. Back to the battle for the race lead. These two Mercedes cars driving in formation per the instructions by Beyonce a couple of years ago. Now it is Django who thought about going on the outside. He's side by side now through this long right-hander, and they'll be side by side going into the final corner. It's Django finally in the race lead. No! Seakley defending the inside says, "You shall not pass." Channeling the best of Gandalf is Seakley as he treats that final turn like the bridge of Khazad-dûm in the Fellowship of the Ring. Lap 10 of 25. It's Smirch Django versus Seakley. Again, a beautiful battle we've seen between these two. And what a sensational battle we will have, hopefully, between now and the end of this race. Man Ray reckons that some of the EXCO members are going to be shepherding these drivers either down into Tier 2 or indeed shepherding them from the back of the pack, hopefully to catch up with the race leaders. Either way, it may yet be an absolutely beautifully entertaining battle between a sequence of battles between now and the end of this race. Tabang Amanguni says Seakley is showing us how champions defend. Absolutely. Seakley with his trademark ice-cold demeanor is just putting on a master class of defensive driving over here. And Django, who's been huffing and puffing and trying to get that overtake done, is now out of DRS. And look at that. Look at that difference in battery power and the difference in composure right now. Django perhaps getting impatient here, has been tucked in the slipstream, but could not effect an overtake. And right now is really breathing through the wound, fighting for his life, trying to get back within a second of the champion, who seems to have a little bit of a twitch on the exit of that final corner. Soon to begin lap 11. Well, Django blinks first. Django dives straight into the pits, and Seakley is going to have to push as much as he possibly can. At the beginning of lap 11, Django fits his medium compound of tire as Caboza opts to carry on in lap 11 over here. He's going to keep on carrying on. I do wonder if Seakley is going to bite the bullet or call Seakley or call Django's bluff and also pit in this particular lap. It doesn't look so because Seakley is not even using up any of his battery, so Seakley is content just to stay out here and take these mediums for another couple of laps. And Man Ray thought that Espudo was retiring in the pits, but it seems like he's still running. Esbuda having to pit, seemingly not for the first time today. Tepiso has also come into the pits for his hard compound tires. So Sikle leads proceedings in lap 11. He didn't opt to use too much of his battery power. I do wonder if he will bring it straight back into the pits this time out. Sikle is on the verge of lapping Esbuda in lap 11, or perhaps it's going to be in lap 12 of 25. Kapoza is a full 12.3 seconds behind the champion. And Smirch Django, who pitted early, has come out in traffic about 2 seconds behind. Oh, it's up and down Sikle! A rookie error speeds into the pit lane, perhaps too eager to reclaim his advantage over his teammate. He gets a 5-second time penalty. Oh, man. And that means it's advantage Kapoza, advantage Django possibly, as far as the race win is concerned. Oh, rookie error, uncharacteristic error by Sikle, who speeds into the pit lane, and Ngawako does exactly that as well. Oh, man. So the penalty is starting to trickle in. Mex fits his hard compound tires on, and Django, after all of that kerfuffle, has come out about 3/10 behind his teammate. So the undercut didn't quite work, but he may yet have the last lap here because Sikle has got the fresher tires, the colder tires. Django, who has been out for a lap, has a decent opportunity to effect an overtake here. He dives on the inside. Risky potential move there. They're side by side, wheel to wheel. But does Sikle still have the advantage? Yes! The champion is still in front. He's still in front by about a hair's length, by about 1/10 of a second. And Django is going to have to keep his head and stay patient over here. Sikle, I beg your pardon, Sikle with a masterclass of defensive driving on the colder tires, which are struggling for grip as he tries to really warm them up. And Django's not even waiting to get onto the main straight before draining that battery. He's going for it in this rush towards the final corner. Takes the outside line, does Django, but he could not effect that overtake. Sikle keeping his teammates so frustrated. Seppo Temba, will he come into the pits? Yes, he does. And again, they resume their gladiator titanic battle. Sikle, with the 5-second time penalty, does not relinquish the lead of this race. Smirch Django has tried everything. He's thrown the kitchen sink at the champion, but Sikle will not be defeated on track. Despite that 5-second time penalty, and I'll tell you what, Django was going to be hoping to finally have been in the lead at some point of this race, and now in lap 13, but he just could not get it done. Man, oh man, oh man. Fensei saying, I am so hacked. Advantage Django, says Key Music in the comments. Escom is really depriving us of a classic Sikle Django Don Ravico battle. Once again, you do wonder what might have been if the likes of Don Ravico, Fensei, Malusi the Malusi, if they were here, if they were taking part in this race, it would have been an all-timer. Definitely, Sikle is an absolute beast. So says Luddy in the comments section, who is looking at the absolute marvel that is the 3-time champion. Django gets his line absolutely wrong through that sequence of corners in at the end of Sector 2, and has to adjust and falls back by about almost 9/10 of a second as they hurtle towards that final corner and towards the main straight. So Django going to have to bide his time, recharge that battery, because Sikle is up to about 80% of his battery power. Kapoza looking good. Decent day for him as Sikle sets a fastest 32.657. And Seppo Temba is going to be fighting it out, juking it out with Kapoza for that possible final podium spot. Mex is about a second and a half behind Seppo Temba, who's on that brand new, that fresh set of hard compound tires. And Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, followed suit and racked up a 5-second time penalty to match what Sikle did. Donovan Malaka, 2.2 seconds behind Ngawako. Zotal, once again, having to fight his way from the midfield after an unforced error at the start of this race. Running in 8th place, Mandla also broke his wing unceremoniously earlier on. It's P9 currently for him. He'll be looking to claw his way up this pack. Band Kobe is in that final points position as things currently stand. Cepiso and Esbuda currently making up the back of the pack. They are on the fresh set of medium compound tires. Just to get a sense, I believe Esbuda had already been lapped. Cepiso may yet be on the brink of such a fate. Esbuda, nightmare day, 3 stops! 3 stops for Esbuda, who seemingly is now being hunted down by Sepultemba. Man, oh man, oh man. Sepultemba, who's already made his stop, looking to lap the Red Bull of Esbuda in lap 15, soon to be lap 16 of 25. So we're down to the final 10 here, folks, as Sepultemba has had a really, really decent day, all things considered. Capoza, why are you... Oh no, was that Mix coming into the pits? Oh, it looked like Capoza was bluffing to come into the pits there, but thankfully he did not. So Sepultemba is the meat in a McLaren sandwich, as Esbuda in the pits has opted to wave the white flag, throw in the towel, and pretty much relinquish his prospects of a points finish here. He becomes the first driver to retire from this race, relinquishing his prospects from the pit lane. So Esbuda, commiserations with you. It has not been a decent day at all as far as your prospects are concerned. Capoza, very, very good day as far as he is concerned here. Let's get back now to this battle between the top two. Man Ray earlier on was saying Cicle and battery management. I learned it from him. You only apply your battery just after you straighten your wheel on the exits. And after 6th gear, then you switch your battery off. So very, very intentional application of the ERS as far as Cicle is concerned. And, well, you can see the difference in approach. The chasing man, who is still within DRS, Django, is down to about 16% of his battery power. Cicle all the way at 89, 90% of his battery power. I do wonder if Cicle can pull off an unlikely miracle here and absolutely use that battery power to send it and try somehow to build a 5-second advantage. But against Django, it's going to be hard. Oh, Cepiso has lost his wing here and has just been lapped in Sector 1. Wingless, and has just been overtaken by the pair of Mercedes drivers. And he's now going to have to come in for another pit stop to conclude the final 8 or so laps of this race. So nightmare scenario for Cepiso, whose battle is now with Ban Kobe. But because he's going to have to come into the pits, it's advantage Ban Kobe for that 10th spot, which guarantees you 1 championship point in the driver's standings, of course. Now, back to some of other key figures. Smirch Django was the quickest man on track. He set a 32.333, which represents the fastest lap up until this point. But in his fight back, he's hovering on the brink of slipping out of DRS. They're rushing down towards the final corner, and Cicle gets a clean entry and exit, and Django will chase once again. Won't use his battery this time out. He'll just be happy just to stay tucked into the slipstream as Esbuda leaves the session here and ends his prospects with another DNF of his season. Django versus Cicle, what a sensational battle it has been. Liddy says, being the only driver to not get a point here is going to be very, very sad. Tier 1 is not good for your mental health, man. You really have to be on your game at the very least. And look at that. Cepiso rolling the dice here. And in lap 17 of 25, has fitted a set of soft compound tires. Man, oh man, oh man. And it looks like he's already been lapped by some of the drivers in the midfield. So we could be seeing Cepiso trying to find his way back into the reckoning. He's so far behind Ban Kobe. Look at Cepiso. Look at his position. And Ban Kobe is really, really about a minute and a quarter ahead of Cepiso. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Cepiso. Even if you were to get the fastest lap on these soft compound tires, it's going to be futile. because, well, it's not going to translate to a point because he finds himself outside the top 10 positions. Back to the battle for the race lead. 0.2 is the gap between the two Mercedes, who have really given us a sensational entertainment this year. Django, again, clocks the quickest, 32.312. Man Ray says, I said it too early, but it was bound to happen. S. Buddha must be feeling horrible to retire for the fifth time in the pits. Maybe it's time he just gave his seat to a Tier 2 leader to regain some power. Well, S. Buddha is a very proud man, competitor in his own right, but yeah, sadly for him, it just has not worked out this season. Struggled for form, struggled for points, struggled for results, and today a DNF in the pits. This is the perspective from Django hunting down his teammates, as it looks like further behind there's a titanic tussle between Don and Zotal. Oh, look at Zotal tucked right into the slipstream, almost having a moment with the back of Jonathan Laka. Man, oh man, we may yet have a beautiful little battle over here in lap 18 of 25. We'll catch up with the battle for the race lead in a moment or two, but Zotal is absolutely sending it, hunting down the Ferrari driver. He thought about going on the inside into that into that left-hander in Sector 2, but he was not close enough to have a say on that P7 spot, currently held by Don. It's a battle of wits, a battle of battery power, and it's advantage Don. He's got about 40 or so % of his battery power remaining, and Zotal's just going to have to bide his time and possibly go for it on the main straight. But that is assuming that he keeps it clean on the final part of Sector 3 here. Now, the Mercedes boys have already begun lap number 19 of 25. Zotal and Don are on the verge of doing that. Ooh, Don gets a beautiful exit and gets a little bit of breathing room between himself and the Alpine, but Zotal tucks straight into the slipstream and dives on the inside line. They're wheel-to-wheel, side-by-side, and it's advantage Zotal, who breaks right on the apex, and Don has to then concede as Tapiso has just claimed the fastest lap in lap 19 of 25, but it won't count for anything as far as points are concerned currently. Lap 19 of 25, look at that. Don is going to fight straight back in this battle against Zotal, and perhaps in the forthcoming DRS stretch, Jonathan Laka may yet have something in the bag to affect a possible overtake. Absolutely sending it are these drivers who are currently in P5, that being Zotal, and P11 in the driver's standings respectively. Don, P11 in the driver's standings, and that little bit of a gap just stretches a little bit to about 7/10, hovering, and it's now 8/10. So Don has his work cut out. Zotal using as much of his battery as possible to make sure that on this little DRS stretch, Jonathan Laka does not have anything in the bag and no possibility of effecting an overtake. Don slips out of Zotal's DRS, so even though the Ferrari has the advantage as far as battery power is concerned, Zotal playing the longer game and eking out a little bit of an advantage here. Decent battle here. We had a beautiful lap after lap battle last night in the second tier by Letty and Twitch on this year track. And Don and Zotal are hoping to replicate that by some margin, as are, of course, the race leaders. Seppo Temba finds himself on the brink of a possible overtake on Kapoza. What a beautiful recovery it's been for Seppo Temba. He had that spin earlier, and right now he's on the verge of a possible podium finish. Kapoza has fallen 23 seconds behind the race-leading Mercedes pair, and I would imagine a large reason for that is because he turned his attention from Django down towards his mirrors and towards the man hunting him down. But as Seppo Temba does that, his battery is down to about 10%, so you see that red light flashing on the back of that Aston Martin, who will have to bide his time once again. If Django thought about it. Meanwhile, on the inside, going into turn one, wasn't close enough. That gap now half a second again as we catch up with the chasing Kabosa and Seppo Temba, who are only now coming onto the main straight as the top two drivers are on the verge of finishing Sector 1. Gives you a sense of that gap. It's now 25 and a half seconds. The gap between Kabosa in P3 and Rich Django in P2. So it's been a dominant showing by Team Mercedes, who have really been the gold standard and the benchmark of the top tier this season. Ooh, Seppo Temba trying to keep it on the limit, but really making sure that he keeps it clean and keeps it together here. He's got just one lap fresher tires. Kabosa pitted 9 laps ago, Seppo Temba 8 laps ago. So really negligible difference. But of course, driving style also impacts how these drivers would be feeling at this point of the race. Cepiso at the back of the pack, back in the pits. Those soft tires that Cepiso fitted, screaming once again. He had to come back into the pits. The Mercedes pair still scrapping it out. Tindo says these two could actually double stack and still come out in front. Such is the gap behind them. While perhaps the person at the back of the double stack would struggle with Kabosa in the final stages of this race. But of course, this is all about the race win. None of these guys are going to give it up. C-Clay has just kept a cool head and managed to keep his teammate at bay here. And I do wonder if Django is just content to be in the slipstream here, or if he's going to give it a proper push and challenge to cross the line in that P1 position. Seppo Temba is Liddy's driver of the day. What a day for him. He's done so well to stay in touch with the McLaren in front of him. I beg your pardon, my button was on mute, so I was kind of speaking to myself there, but I am back. I was speaking about Madla, who did come into the pits for a brand new set of soft compound tires. He's hoping to find himself challenging for that extra championship point We'll see if he could manage to get that done. And Seppo Temba on his epic battle with Kapoza, still hanging on to P4. But of course, he uses up significantly more battery power this time. He dives on the inside, but Kapoza had the advantage going into turn 1. And sadly for Seppo Temba, it's even less battery power, and he is still in that P4 spot. He's tried everything as Seppo Temba. Currently running in 4th, half a second behind Kapoza, who's really done well to defend from the Aston Martin driver. They're hovering at around about the same level as far as ERS, remaining ERS power is concerned. They're hovering at the 30% mark. So I do wonder if Kapoza can still manage to keep his composure between now and the end of proceedings. He's got just 2 laps to do so. Just 1 lap to do so, as the leading pack have just crossed the line to begin the 25th and final lap. Catching up with them now, they've been pretty much racing hand in hand, side by side, if you will, right within touching distance of one another. And I suppose at this point, Clay would have been hoping that his teammate behind him makes a grave mistake, makes mistake enough to push him out of the reckoning for a race win by a factor of about 5 seconds. But Django has been unflinching in his attempt to challenge Clay here. He has tried, but he has not managed to claim that top spot. But despite that, he has been unrelenting, hanging on to that second spot in this race. Kapoza, fighting off Seppo Temba, has fallen behind by about 29 seconds. That just gives you an indication of the sheer gulf in class between the top 2 and the rest of the pack. Smirch Jangle was absolutely sending it, and at this point he's draining his battery. Clay, knowing that he still has that time penalty to contend with, does not want to be overtaken on track. Oh, Django goes for the switcheroo, dives on the inside, and on the final corner, Django finally gets that move down there side by side, but Clay will not go down without a fight. It's a drag race towards the line. It's just a couple hundredths of a second, and Smirch Django comes across the line in P1, and Clay with that 5-second time penalty will still hang on to P2, but what a final lap that they gave us. Django biding his time, and like a snake in the rough, a snake in the grass, he went for it, perhaps when Clay, when hoping that Clay would have been had little to defend with, but Clay being Clay, he gave it his absolute all, and they came home in P1 and 2, Mercedes 1-2. Kapoza held off Seppo Temba. He will finish on the 3rd and final podium spot. Seppo Temba matches his season's best result, comes home in P4. Next will finish this race in Saudi Arabia in P5. Another decent result for the McLaren driver. Zotal had that huge moment, that huge mistake in the initial laps, which really cost him a potential memorable race result here. He will come home in P6. Donathan Laka is behind the Alpine driver. It's a point haul. It's another effort, another notch up the standings. So it's a decent points haul for Donathan Laka. P7. Madla tried as much as he possibly could to reclaim that fastest lap. This will be his final attempt to do so. Here he comes now across the line. Madla will take the checkered flag and come home in P8. Ngawako, aka DUX, ghosted out in P8. And it looks like Ban Kobe may have claimed the final podium spot. It was a nice recovery by Zotal there. Kid K says, what a race. And the 86er says, well, that was wily, that was smarts by Smarts. And, of course, the man who joins me initially in the commentary box is that man, the 3-time champion, the gold standard, the one that everybody in the top-tier Breakaway League racing will be compared to for quite some time. It's a P2 finish today an unforced error, that mistake really costing you the race win, C-Clay. Take us through that.
Ty, there was actually no mistake. I got the penalty before I reached the line. As I braked, the pit entry has that quick right and left.
Yep.
As soon as I took the right on the brake, it gave me a penalty. I was actually gonna go to Stewart's and show footage of that.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah, what a race, honestly. I had a race set up. Yeah, it was too safe, in my opinion, and I think I was also too safe with my ERS. But yeah, that lunge at the end, yeah, that was quite aggressive, in my opinion. I'll take a look at it. But yeah, what a race. Just managed it, and I could keep him behind me. I know there's times he also tried managing his ERS, but I sussed that I was doing a better job than him, because I think I was running a lower car, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, looking at the telemetry, pretty much throughout the race, Django was doing as much as he can to stay in touch. And even though you were in the lead, there was a point at the race where Django was trying to overtake. He had DRS and ERS, but you were at about 100% of battery power. It was quite something.
Yeah, I was just saving it, honestly. But yeah, I don't know, like I said, I'll take a look at the end. And yeah, that penalty, I don't know why it actually gave me a penalty then. And I was on the brakes only told me to brake.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that could get rescinded and make things quite, of course, interesting. But that last dive by Django to come across the line in P1 really made it a sensational end to this race, as you guys were pretty much, miles and miles ahead. Congratulations, C-Clay, back on the podium. Familiar territory for him. Caboza is in the podium, P3. He's saying in the comments what a struggle it is to catch up, to stay in touch with the Merc boys. Take us through that, Mr. McLaren. Yeah. I was just taking notes. I was going to try and paraphrase what you said.
Sorry about that. Sorry if I can just recap greetings. I'm sure they can hear me now. So I was saying that I had a good start. I knew that I could take the field drivers, which was Otile and Diwak from the starts, and then it was me. I was just following TT, and then TT made a mistake and spun in sector 2. Then I just got promoted to P3. And then I tried to manage a gap between me and the Merc boys, because I was alone in fresh air, but they just kept pulling faster slap after faster slap, and I couldn't cope with that.
Yeah.
And then come the hard compounds. I thought we had dealt with Zefotemba, but then he came back at the end. He was just catching us. Because I thought my teammate was going to be able to overtake him in the pit stop. But he overcut, and then was able to jump my teammates, and then he had just made pace. But I was saying, the Mac boys, chance in the league of their own. 30-second gap, and not that I was making any mistakes, but you know when you see someone is gaining like 4 tenths on you,
Yeah,
and you can't
yeah.
even see where they're actually gaining the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so being best of the rest, I'll take this because we've been in the mud at McLaren. So a double P, a double top five for us. Good points after such not such memorable races, past two races. Yeah, but yeah, we'll take that.
Oh man, what an effort that was! And yeah, when TT was catching up to you towards the end there, it really looked like a heck of a battle. And I know both of you guys had very similar battery power remaining towards the end, so that was quite a lot there. Yeah, thanks for also adjusting your mic to make sure that people could hear you. Django was saying it would have been cool to see Don Rabico's pace around here. Since in practice he was looking very, very quick. Sikle, I just want to ask, what were the difference in your setup between the scorchers that you were putting up in the simulators on time trial and also this race here? What were the tweaks?
I knew that it would be a night race, so
Yeah.
I had a more balanced setup. The one that I use for my time trial is more aggressive.
Yeah.
A more aggressive front, meaning the front would be high and my rear would be very low. So my entry would be insane, basically. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't want to take that risk because I checked it out, it does really chow my rears a lot, and I spin as well. So yeah, I was just playing around with a few setups. I think I have 3 for this race.
Wow.
And yeah, this one it's the safest I saw when I was practicing. It's not the quickest, but it is definitely the safest.
Man, safe enough to make it another podium finish for Sikle, whose teammates, alongside whose teammates are pretty much running away with the constructor's title. And of course, the battle moves on to Brazil next time out. Gentlemen, what a beautiful race you gave us. Thank you so much. We will see you both on Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Central African time, as you battle around the Interlagos circuit in Sao Paulo in Brazil. So thank you, gentlemen. I will just catch up now with the last comments before wrapping things up. A couple of shouts for Django and Sikle, driver of the day, and Kaboza, commending that P3 finish. I see Estelle in the comment section. People speaking about Zotal's recovery as well. And a couple of banters from the 86er there. Man Ray was saying, pass the man on track. And Django, unfortunately, could not join us. He does not have a mic from his current place where he is racing, trying to mitigate the load shedding situation, which has impacted everyone across the country. Brazil up next, gents. I hope it's a similarly entertaining race where you're all fighting it and scrapping it out for those race wins. We will see you on Tuesday. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Good night. Hi, guys. Peace. Cheers.